All right, so let's go ahead and do a quick little breakdown of EU. Before I get into it, I want to make a quick little announcement. I am traveling to Miami tomorrow, not tomorrow, on Thursday. So I'm going to be tomorrow will be my last trading day, probably of the week. I'll try and get a couple trades in on Thursday and Friday if I'm available to, but I will be traveling all day Thursday. I'm going to go visit a friend for his birthday over in Miami, as well as just take some time off. But I'll be back full time on Monday to pretty much help everybody for all my one-on-ones. For those that have scheduled appointments on Friday or Thursday, all those will be moved back most likely on to Monday. So just wanted to go ahead and let you guys know about that. But anyways, today was an interesting New York session. I had one break even, one loss at the beginning as well on EU. And then eventually over time, I finally got to recover on EU sells, which you guys pretty much just saw me post on my Instagram. Obviously, I'm not going to put in all the algo structure rules within those posts because I do want to keep that private, especially to the VIP community, because I don't want everybody trading like me. But let's get into it. Let's go ahead and hop in and start off with what we always know, the daily time frame, right? So let's go ahead and pop on the Seisner sauce and see if we have any injections. It actually turned out that we didn't really have any except for this one here recently, which also correlates with this fractal up here, right? And that is the first daily fractal that is giving us our high time frame direction of price, right? Our overall high time frame bias. As we can see, the majority of price is going to remain short, most likely till our next daily high time frame sweep and or external sweep. So this is the range in which I want to be looking in to trade EU, right? After understanding this range on the daily time frame, I then moved into the 4 hour, right? I saw that there was a nice trend line liquidity buildup coming up. So I knew that there was going to be some sort of manipulation around this area here, and or once we manipulate, we should continue and take out all of this trend line liquidity as well, right? Also, let me go ahead, turn on session breaks so we can understand what's going on from a day-by-day perspective. So now let's mark in all of our previous day highs and lows, as well as all of our 4 hour external liquidity, right, which is shown by the fractals here. All right, so those that don't know already, here that 4 hour, right, we swept, we could have started buying first thing in the morning, I think somewhere around Frankfurt, in which I was not awake, but those trading Frankfurt, you could have started grabbing buys out of this area around here. Now, what else did I notice? I noticed that we had a break, a structure here and or a sweep. And one thing I always like to do is look back to see if there's any OBs that have imbalance in them. It turns out that this OB actually had quite a bit of imbalance in it. I apologize. My dog loves to bark every time I make these videos. Anyways, we saw that we have an OB here, right, with a good amount of imbalance in it, right? If I zoom in, right, we do the 1, 2, 3 rule. Here's candle 1, here's candle 2, and here's candle 3. We can clearly see that candle 1 has a lot of imbalance in between this and candle 3, telling me that it is a more valid OB to look at post the break of structure. So that is why I had this OB in here, right? Knowing that my high time frame direction or high time frame bias is going to remain short, there's a lot of reason as to why this OB here is going to be effective on top of the added 4 hour break of structure here to tell me that we might continue from it, right? So this is basically all I saw in terms of the 4 hour analysis. Now there was a trend line coming in here in which you could have assumed, that this was the manipulation of that trend line in here for just added confluence, right? So you could have had that in there just to identify a little bit more confirmation or confluence in your analysis, right? Now, on top of that, is there anything else I see? I see that there was a previous day low that was around here. So we can also see that this was SP1 that moved into SP2, right? Can't forget about those core concepts. And then we had, right? SP3 right here, that third final drive to the low, which caused this whole movement back up, right? And this at one point was actually the lows of the day, right here. So we can all kind of see how this formulated into there. Now we know that this OB is most likely going to push down SP2, right? And I'm starting to do something new to help you guys, and that's this black arrow right here to show that we could have a reaction at this OB with imbalance, right? So that is basically how I analyzed from the daily to 4 hour and really understood my high time frame direction as well as high time frame moves. With that being said, the high time frame moves we could have gotten were these buys and these shorts. That was it. Right now, how could we have played the internal liquidity a little more to perhaps grab a little bit more positions? And that's when we go into the 1 hour, right? Now, there's a lot more confluence on the 1 hour to basically tell us what's going on within price, right? Well, first of all, here's our low of the day, right, which is orange, right, which has catalyzed this move back up to the upside. Well, what else do we have? This at one point was also the Asian highs and or also the high of the day. As we know, the high of the day can be continuations or reversals, but understanding that our high time frame bias is short and understanding everything we've just gone over on the 4 hour, we can understand that this is most likely inducement to this 4 hour POI right here, right? So this is our low of the day, high of the day. This is our new high of the day, as well as our new low of the day, which has just been created recently. Now, on top of that, we want to put in our previous day low, which is also here, which really did not get respected whatsoever. We also want to put in, just the one above it, which is our previous day internal liquidity, as we know to be red, right? All that algo structure gets put in there. On top of that, we want to put in our internal structure so we understand that this is gray, right? Used for continuations, as well as this over here is also used for continuations, right? Which is telling me that perhaps we can come back to this OB down here, right, and actually start buying up if we have confirmation, right? I'm not just going to buy simply because price comes back into here. I'm going to buy only if I get some sort of 1 minute structure that's going to give me something like this, and it'll be come and trap those guys out, come back up, break a structure, then run, right? So hopefully that starts to make sense and click for some people, right? As we can see, we did take out internal structure highs here, so we could have found some area to buy somewhere around in here. I would have waited, honestly, to get back into this extreme here. However, as we know, all price has to do is mitigate imbalance in order for it to go up, right? So hopefully you guys understand what is going on from that perspective there. Now, from the 1 hour, right, understanding this entire analysis, I then jump into the 15-minute. Now, I always recommend once you're in the 15-minute, you really do not need the fractals at this point unless you want to trade very, very, I guess, precise positions that you're already in. I would only trade the 15-minute fractals if you are already in an external position and or some sort of algo position, right? I see people taking these 15-minute fractal positions, they lose and they wonder why. Well, they're not very probable. Your win rate's probably going to be sitting around a 50% win rate. So don't expect to be hitting trades all the time on the 15-minute time frame. But what was going on the 15-minute time frame? Well, just like in the post, I did refine here to this 15-minute OB, right, as we can see here. Now, why? This 15-minute OB, as we can see, clearly had imbalance, right? It was that candle that swept the candle before it, right? And it also caused the break of structure out of the 4 hour POI. So as we can see, it's a very similar refinement to what we would make on the M1. That's if we were considering the 13 or 15 or 10-minute bearish or bullish engulfing confirmation, right? It's a similar criteria, same objective methodology coming out here, right? Now coming into that, right, we now have the 15-minute fractals in which I always mark a dotted line, right? Tell me that they're there, but they're not necessarily important, right? As we can see, we swept this 15-minute fractal, high of the day fractal into here, which is some good confluence to tell me that this is going to have some sort of immediate reaction to go short, right? So after looking at this 15-minute fractal, right, and understanding that this was down here, right, I was looking down here to target, right? This was TP1, right? Understand that this is TP1. This is also where I'm most likely going to go break even, and or I'll look on the 5-minute chart and that first break of the 5-minute fractal, which was here, would also be an area I'd look to go break even, which is where I actually decided to go break even. So as soon as price came and tapped this fractal here, that's when I decided to go break even with price. And we ended up doing fine all the way down and hitting our first TP, right? So understand that this was a nice sweep, nice AMD cycle that's now occurring right now. You know, on the larger time frames, it doesn't really work the exact same way as the M1. So I wouldn't rely on the AMD cycle necessarily on these higher time frames. But anyways, understanding this, let's go into here and understand how I got my refinement. Coming up into the M1, what do I notice, right? The amount of drives I see post sweep were pretty crazy, right? So here was our first drive to the high, right? As we can see, that's our first sweep. That would be SP1. This up here would be SP2, right? And as we can see, we have SP3, SP4. So we have multiple drives to the high, more than 3, telling me that there's a lot of confluence, telling me that there's not really going to be a smart money trap after we have a sweep Koch mitigation, right? And that's exactly what's going on here. Here's that upper fractal. Here's that sweep, right? We look to the fractal that it made to the downside. Here's that Koch, right? In which I was looking for, that change of character. And then, like I always talk about, here's that external fractals, right? Here are these internal fractals here. Those internal fractals made this range right here. So you could have started entering as soon as we entered into that range. However, I decided to use this little M1 candle up here as my entry. Well, if any of you saw my post, you would have seen that I got entries not only here, but also here. I decided to enter both, right? So I got entries on this with around a 5 pip stop. And I also got entries here with around a 2.3 pip stop. And I deviated and expanded out my risk just to get a little bit more RR out of my trade, right? So right around here is where I went break even, around 1 to 5. That's also where I started to take partials. I took around 20% partials, and then I took around 50% more partials around here, closing off around 70% of my position, around 1 to 10 on the second position. And then it looks like on this one, 1 to 5 on the first, right? So a decent trade, definitely overall. I now still have around 30% of my position running, probably just a little under actually at this point now, right? So that is pretty much how I got into these EU shorts. Now, in terms of all these other positions here, this was probably the best position of the day on EU. Everything else wasn't super clean. Like even if I were to come down to here, right, when we're looking at the AMD cycle, here we have the sweep Koch, but we never came down to mitigate our favorite area. Rather, it still would have been probable or fine to take positions or buy stop orders here to take price up. And I remember looking at it with a student a little while ago. I think it ran to a 1 to 7, right? So it was still a decent position, even though we didn't get to tap in to our refinement here. But as you can see, if we're patient, we just constantly have to be patient. We'll eventually get trades like this. Now, when I was trading EU, we never got originally that sweep break a structure at any point in time, right? We wanted to see a sweep of these highs. We never got the sweep of those highs until here. And it wasn't until here until we started that cycle once again, right? All right. So I know I went a little fast, but I had to get going somewhere in the next 10 minutes. But hopefully this gives you guys a little bit more of an understanding of why or how I caught EU sells today. One thing I just want to briefly go over is GBP USD. It was a really good position that I saw a lot of you guys take, which was around here, right? It was pretty much the same methodology here. We swept previous day internal highs, right? As you can see from over here, these were not highs of the day. These were not highs of the day. These were previous day internal liquidity. And because we swept previous day internal liquidity, right, into this imbalance or wicks that we see over here, you know, I started to look more towards a position also because of the daily cycle. Also, if you were trading GU first thing in London, you should have gotten these buys. They were so pretty, right? Let me just go over these buys real quick. All we did was sweep previous day lows here. Let me clean this up. We swept previous day lows here. We had 1, 2, more than 3 drives to the low starting here, right? Then after those 3 drives, if we don't want to get smart money trapped, right, we wait for the sweep, break a structure, which we never had there. Then we had the sweep, finally that break of structure here, and then that OB that was sitting right here for that mitigation, and this one ran to a 1 to 50 all the way up to the highs up here. Now I saw a lot of you guys, we swept some sort of liquidity in the past here, and then we had a similar thing, another AMD cycle where we swept, we had that break of structure here, and then we could have taken this candle as the refinement, right? Because this was the last to sweep to these to go short. It was not a bad position whatsoever. I would have gone break even as soon as we came around these levels here, because as you know, price can definitely start the hop up. Now, what am I thinking here? There's a bunch of equal distant highs kind of laying around here. At this point, I'm not really sure what price is going to do. I would just remain to hold your sells if you're still in them now. Other than that, that's pretty much what I saw today. There really wasn't much. Monday and Tuesday have been kind of slow. There hasn't been any massive trades in New York. If you've been trading London, like I said, GU had some phenomenal buys today. That was really the main position you should have gotten today. But other than that, hope this video was helpful and hope you guys learned something new. Oh, actually, one more thing. Because there was one more thing I saw in EU, and was the scalings, right? There were no internal fractals here until here. We formed this external fractals, and it wasn't until, right, we didn't break the range, these were forming internally of these that formed, right? So as soon as these internal fractals formed, right, what did I do? Right, knowing that we did what? We broke below this fractal here. I knew it was possible, right, to just sweep this upper fractal, right? So as soon as this came up, closed in and came in, you could have started entering right here. You would have been fine to have stops here, but I would recommend keeping it above the external fractal just in case. And you could have scaled in back to the same TP for a 1 to 3 if you truly wanted to. I did not get into those. I was already kind of concerned about this position because I still think there's some leeway for it to go up because the last external sweep was still down here for it to continue higher. Even though the high time frame bias is short, I generally, and you guys know this, I do not like constantly betting against the high time frame sweep. I always rather bet with it, right? But I also don't like betting, especially when, we have a short bias and long bias going against each other. Remember what I said, it's always better to have your high time frame bias, somewhat align with your external bias. Say that this was a previous day high sweep, and this was also going short. That would be really, really powerful. Those are your high probability moves. And just remember, guys, like there's different probabilities associated with each setup, and you can see those probabilities run out. Do as much back testing as you can to see how the high time frame truly drives the intraday and internal analysis. But as you can see, there was a lot of analysis that went in to just understanding this one simple sweep to Koch flip, right? Within this short trade here. And as you can see, we still made a shitload of money off of it. So it was a very good position. And now it looks like we're coming to mitigate this OB once again. And if we show some sort of confirmation within here, I don't see why we won't be able to trade it. It actually looks like we just made external, internal fractals, right? Looks like that just got swept right here. This could honestly start shorting, right? It's always a possibility, but we never broke below the internal fractal yet, which is definitely something we would like to see. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I will see you guys in the next breakdown.